The Liberal Party is already dealing with major infighting.
Because I think it reflects the way this government is running things. You know, this Modi backlash that is happening within the Liberal caucus, if they had discussed this issue ahead of time with the caucus, they would have been able to mitigate so much of the backlash that has happened. The same thing with C5, the Natural Resources Bill. If they had talked to caucus about it before and not briefed them an hour before they tabled it, some of the backlash would not have happened. Or the stakeholders on the border bill. They don't seem to value caucus as a sounding board, and I think this is going to cause more and more problems if they don't realize it soon.
Well, yeah, well, we've seen that certainly with past prime ministers. Chantal, last word.
Plain and simple that it wasn't in the election platform is because there's no way the math could have at all worked. 5% of military spending, and this is 5% of GDP, so it's not a number. You can grow the economy and make this less a significant spend, is almost a third of all government spending. And there's some of that spending you can't touch. It's transfers to healthcare, it's transfers to people, it's old age security. Yeah. You can't touch this stuff. So the idea that they could cut this much out of the federal government is quite surprising and will be felt if that's the way they're going, or they're just going to add more to the deficit and the debt, and this will be structural deficits that I'm sure Andrew will write lots about.
It truly sounds like Carney does not value the people around him, including the people he chose to be his right and left-hand man. During the end of Trudeau's reign, we saw the Liberal caucus collapsing on itself, ministers calling him out to resign. Things were so bad, Freeland resigned, they didn't want to table the fall economic statement, the entire party was scrambling, and now it seems like we're hearing the exact same thing repeating itself. The Liberal caucus is already at odds and can't agree on things. Whether it's the Modi situation or defense spending or building new pipelines and creating this energy superpower that they've claimed time and time again. For the past 10 years, the Liberals told us that pipelines, natural resources, anything that wasn't electric or a renewable energy was terrible for Canada, and now we're seeing the exact opposite. But I can only imagine Liberal ministers probably aren't agreeing with Carney at all here. It is one thing after another, and it really sounds like Carney is listening to the Conservatives more than the Liberals, and at this point, I'm all for it. Continue to listen to what the Conservatives give you, because nothing the Liberals have proposed over the past 10 years have worked. It sounds like Carney tried to block independent media from covering the G7 summit.
Carney's Foreign Affairs Department had no justification at all for keeping our reporters out, and unlike Trudeau's Debates Commission, who tried to ban us twice, this time they didn't even try to come up with a justification. They just refused to accredit us. No reason given. But that just doesn't cut it when you're the government violating freedom of the press. It doesn't work that way. So I knew we had a good chance, given that the Federal Court of Canada has already twice slapped down the Liberals for trying to block our journalists. But you never know what's going to happen in court. You never know what judge you're going to get. There's always a human factor, a risk. So I was still a bit nervous. My main concern was this: could the justice system move fast enough? Trials often take years. We were asking the federal court to have an emergency hearing the next day at 9:30 a.m. and to give us their ruling that same night. That's faster than 99.9% of all court cases. And I think that's what Carney's lawyers thought would save them. They knew that they were violating our rights, but if we couldn't get our day in court until after the G7 was done, then they would win by default, you see? It all came down to the federal court. Could they find us a judge and a courtroom quickly enough? Well, yes, they did. Now, we didn't hear that until the night. And surprise, surprise, it was only after the court said they could jam us in. That's when Carney's lawyers called us up and said they weren't going to fight back. They were going to surrender and back down and let us in. I think their lawyers knew that if they fought us in court, they would absolutely be shredded by the judge. Given that the federal court has already ruled twice in our favor, they simply were hoping to be saved by a too busy court schedule, but they weren't, so they caved in.
The fact that they're trying to block any media Regardless of what you think of Rebel News, the fact that they're trying to block coverage of any kind speaks volumes. It doesn't matter if you're mainstream, independent, Rebel News, I don't care. You should be able to cover this. You are setting a precedence when you take such actions like this, banning media or prioritizing certain stations over another, and that is something that should not be happening in this country. Independent media should get just as much of a say as legacy or mainstream. Because let's say those boundaries are set for an event like the G7, where certain media groups cannot access and cover it. Are you going to continue that going forward? You sort of draw a line in the sand at that point. On top of that, the G7 summit is in a couple days, and I plan to cover it if things do end up getting crazy. We have a couple of videos here and there appearing of people that aren't too happy. I guess we'll see when the day comes. Anyway, I'd like to know what you think down in the comments section below. Hit that like button, hit that sub button, and thank you very much for watching.